Hi, my name is Revati and I am a 6th year medical student studying at LFHK. In this presentation, we will be covering the physiology of the thyroid gland. We will be looking at the synthesis of the thyroid hormones T3 and T4, the regulation of the thyroid hormone and the negative feedback mechanism, along with the parafollicular cells and their significance. In this slide, we have a picture of the thyroid gland. So as you can see, the thyroid gland is located anterior to the trachea and inferior to the larynx. In addition, we also have a microscopic image of the thyroid gland. So here these circular groups of cells are known as the follicular cells marked in green. And in the center, we have the follicular lumen, which contains the colloid. This colloid can store thyroglobulin, which is a precursor to forming the thyroid hormones. In between these follicles, we have the parafollicular cells, along with capillaries and red blood cells. So now, just to explain in more detail, the follicular cells which face the colloid, the follicular lumen basically, is known as the apical side of the cell. And the side that it faces the blood would be known as a basolateral side, and this would be important in order to understand the hormone production. So now we will cover the hormone production by the thyroid gland. So I'll be explaining a couple of steps responsible for the hormone production, and the first step would be the thyroglobulin synthesis. Now, thyroglobulin is a glycoprotein that comprises of tyrosine and amino acids. This is formed in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which then gets packaged into vesicles by the Golgi body and then transported from the follicular epithelial cell into the follicular lumen along the apical side of the cell through a process known as exocytosis. So now once this thyroglobulin is in the follicular lumen, we then have a number of steps that follow after this, which will be covered in the next slides. So the second step is the iodide uptake. Now, how the iodide uptake happens is that we mainly obtain the iodide from our diet. So salty foods, fish, seafood, dairy products, these are all what can give iodide. Now this iodide is in the blood and it needs to move from the blood into the follicular epithelial cell. And how this happens is through the symport channels present across the basolateral side. So iodide along with sodium get transported from the blood to the follicular epithelial cell through the symport channel, and this channel is responsible for moving both these ions into the same side. So this would be the second step. The next step would be the iodination of the thyroglobulin. So as you can see, there are a couple of steps in this process and I will walk you through it now. So as we saw in the previous slide, iodide, which moved from the blood to the follicular epithelial cell, now needs to enter the follicular lumen. So this is in the form of iodide and this over here is in the form of iodine. And how this changes is through a process known as oxidation that occurs because of the enzyme thyroid peroxidase. Now this thyroid peroxidase has many functions. So the first function is the oxidation from iodide to iodine in the follicular lumen along the apical aspect of the cell. Next, this iodine that we have here undergoes another process known as organification, where it gets covalently linked to the tyrosine residues of thyroglobulin to form your monoiodotyrosine and diiodotyrosine, which is given as MIT and DIT respectively, along with the help of the enzyme thyroid peroxidase. And it covalently links to tyrosine residues because we discussed that thyroglobulin comprises of tyrosine and amino acids. So this is the organification. So we had the oxidation, we had the organification, and the next function for the thyroid peroxidase is the coupling reaction. So what happens in the coupling reaction is that we have conjugation of this MIT and DIT molecules with each other. So when you have one MIT and one DIT that combine with each other, it becomes T3. And when you have two DIT molecules conjugating together, it becomes your T4 hormone. So T3 is known as your triiodothyronine and T4 is known as thyroxine, which are still linked to your thyroglobulin molecule in the follicular lumen. And this step is the coupling reaction. So the next phase in the production of the hormone is the storage phase. So we had the three steps: oxidation, organification, and coupling reactions that took place with the help of the thyroid peroxidase enzyme, and now this is primarily stored in the follicular lumen. So we want this to be released back into the follicular epithelial cells when the body requires it. So now when we discuss about the release to the target organs, from the previous step, this molecule gets taken up through the process of endocytosis into the follicular epithelial cell. Once in the follicular epithelial cell, these endocytosed vesicle gets fused with lysozyme. Now the lysozyme contains proteolytic enzymes that help in cleaving this thyroglobulin which is attached to these molecules. So once it's cleaved, T3, T4 become free, MIT, DIT become free as well. T3 and T4 can move across from the follicular epithelial cell back into the blood through the MCT8 transporter. And the MIT and DIT that are present undergo, with the help of the enzyme deiodinase, the iodine gets removed from these molecules and re-enter the intracellular iodide pool, and basically it's a recycling step. So this process can keep happening again and again, and here we have the release of T3 and T4. So T3 is produced in lesser quantities compared to T4. So T4, we have around 80% of T4 that gets produced, and T3 would be present in as only 20%. So now we have the overall view of the synthesis of the thyroid gland hormones. So previously we saw each step happening in closer detail, and now we have the overall picture, and this is how the process occurs, with the end step being the T3 and T4 being released into blood to be taken up by the target organs. So a little bit about the parafollicular cells and the significance of these cells. So parafollicular cells are also known as C cells, and what is the significance behind this is primarily in the calcium homeostasis. So it inhibits the osteoclastic activity and decreases the release of calcium from the bone, because we want to reduce the calcium levels. Now we have the regulation of the thyroid hormone feedback. So this is mainly regulated between three organs. So we have the hypothalamus, the pituitary, anterior pituitary to be specific, and the thyroid gland. So now when we want the T3 and T4 hormones to be produced, we need the hypothalamus to secrete thyrotropin releasing hormone. This would signal the anterior pituitary to release thyroid stimulating hormone, and this is what helps in synthesizing and secreting T3 and T4. But now what happens when we have very high levels of T3 and T4 in the cases of pathological situations like hyperthyroidism, which is characterized by increasing levels of T3 and T4 hormones? What happens is we have a negative feedback mechanism that occurs in order to stop the production of thyrotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus and thyroid stimulating hormone from the pituitary, in order to decrease the synthesis of these hormones in the case of hyperthyroidism. And in the case of hypothyroidism, it would be less. What happens in that situation would be the low amounts of T3 and T4, which then is signaled by the hypothalamus and pituitary in order to release more TRH and TSH in order to stimulate to produce more hormones. So this is basically a very general overview of the regulation of the thyroid hormone and the negative feedback mechanisms. So now functions of the thyroid hormone. So the thyroid hormones have several functions, as you can see in the images here. The primary functions are for the metabolism, the nervous system, and the musculoskeletal system. So for metabolism, thyroid hormone is essential in increasing the basal metabolic rate. And basal metabolic rate is basically the energy that is consumed while being in a resting position. So you're basically not doing anything, but the energy processes keep happening. So that is what thyroid hormone does. So now you have increasing basal metabolic rate, which increases your oxygen, and this happens through increasing expression of your sodium potassium pumps. And increasing expression of the sodium potassium pumps is responsible for increasing your oxygen consumption and also your body temperature, because these are active processes. Along with metabolism, it involves proteolysis, your lipolysis, and your glycogenolysis. So you're breaking down of your proteins, your fat, and your glucose in order to produce energy for these pumps to work and um, help in functioning. So the next function would be your nervous system. So the nervous system is important with regards to the influence of the thyroid hormone because it helps in the maturation of the nervous system. So the brain has to mature. It helps in myelin formation. So myelin is basically like an electric insulator that helps in conducting your signals from axon to axon. And if this doesn't work properly, then it results in situations like mental retardation and intellectual disability. And the other function would be your musculoskeletal system. So for the musculoskeletal system, the thyroid hormone helps in stimulating the bone growth through the promotion and synthesis of and secretion of the growth hormone. So these are the three primary functions of the thyroid hormone, along with the reproductive system, where it is responsible for regulating your fertility and ovulation, menstruation. For the heart, it increases the expression of the receptors on the heart, which tries to increase the heart rate. The heart rate is the number of heart contractions per minute. The stroke volume, which is the volume of blood pumped by the left ventricle in a single heartbeat. The cardiac output, which is a measure of the amount of blood that gets ejected from the heart. And it increases your contractility. So the primary functions for the heart would be to increase heart rate, contractility, stroke volume, your cardiac output. So for the lungs, thyroid hormone is responsible for stimulating the respiratory center, which increases the respiratory rate, and it's also very important in the production of surfactants in newborns. Surfactant now is a substance that is produced by our alveolar cells, and we need the surfactant in order to prevent the collapse of the alveoli. And if you are deficient with this surfactant production, then it could result in acute respiratory distress syndrome, which can be very lethal to the newborns. And it is also responsible for regulating your thermogenesis and maintaining a core body temperature. Now, to wrap up everything, I have a couple of questions that we can go through. So the first question would be, inhibition of the iodide pump would be expected to cause which of the following changes? Now you can pause the video and take some time to think, and then I will discuss the answers with you when you're ready. Okay, so you don't have to worry if you are not able to answer this, but hopefully once I explain the answer to you, you'll be able to get a better idea of why this was the answer. So the question says inhibition of the iodide pump. Now that is one of the most important sentences. So now we discussed previously that iodide was obtained from our diet, and iodide needed to be transported with sodium through the symport channel into the follicular epithelial cells in order to produce your thyroid hormones. So now I'll tell you the answer first, and then we'll go through an elimination method and see why the other options were wrong. So the correct answer is the increased synthesis of thyroglobulin. Now, why is option A incorrect? Increased synthesis of thyroxine. This is not the right answer because we have inhibition of the iodide pump. And when you inhibit this pump, you can't form thyroglobulin. You can't form your thyroid hormones because T4 is the last step in your synthesis path. So A should be incorrect. C, which is increasing metabolic rate. Thyroid hormones are responsible for increasing metabolism. And because you're inhibiting the synthesis of these hormones, C is incorrect. D, which is decreased thyroid stimulating hormone secretion. Again, this would be incorrect because TSH is responsible for releasing your T3 and T4 hormones. Now, you have an inhibition of iodide pump. So that means you're not synthesizing the hormones. So your body has low level of hormones, which through the negative feedback should improve, which through the negative feedback should increase thyroid stimulating hormone. So that option would be incorrect. And the next option is extreme nervousness. Nervousness is a very It's a symptom of hyperthyroidism, and in this situation, we have low level of hormones. So this option is incorrect, and the correct answer is B, increased synthesis of thyroglobulin. So the second question is, which of the following physiological responses is greater for triiodothyronine than for thyroxine? Again, you can take some time to pause the video to think, and we can discuss the answers later. Now, the correct answer is D, affinity for nuclear receptors in target tissues. Again, we will be working by the elimination method. So now options A, B, C, secretion rate from the thyroid, plasma concentration, the half-life, plasma half-life, is all in fact greater for T4. Because previously I mentioned that T4 is produced in much greater amounts compared to T3. And the half-life also, in fact, is much greater for T4 than T3. And the secretion rate is the same thing. So these immediately get knocked out. Now we have D and E left. So latent period for onset of action in target tissues. Now this is actually a pathological situation where this latent period for onset of action only occurs if you have deficiency of deiodinase enzyme in the peripheral tissues. So if you lack this enzyme, then these hormones can't be used up by the peripheral tissues and the organs. So this in fact is incorrect. So the right option has to be affinity for nuclear receptors in target tissues. The last question is, a patient has hyperthyroidism due to a pituitary tumor. Which of the following sets of physiological changes would be expected? Again, you have some time to think, and then we can get back to discussing the answers. Okay, so the correct answer is B. Now, again, through the process of elimination, the question stem says the person has a pituitary tumor and hyperthyroidism as a result of it. Now, this pituitary tumor, because a patient has developed hyperthyroidism, means that the tumor is producing a lot of T3 and T4 hormones. So, let's first look at the heart rate column. In the heart rate column, we said that functions of the thyroid gland is to try and increase your heart rate, your contractility, and stroke volume, cardiac output. Now this patient has hyperthyroidism, which means there must be much more, it has to have a greater heart rate. So from this we can immediately cross out C, D, E. So option is between A, B, and F. So the next thing to think about is the thyroglobulin synthesis. Okay, so thyroglobulin synthesis is required in order to produce the T3 and T4 hormones. So because a patient has hyperthyroidism, it must mean that thyroglobulin synthesis also has to increase because it's a pathological state. So it can't be F because thyroglobulin synthesis in F shows to be decreased, which is incorrect. It should be increased. So now the option comes down to A or B. Now between A or B, it has been simplified to just the exophthalmos, which is a protrusion of the eyeball. So A means positive exophthalmos for hypothyroidism with a patient with pituitary tumor, or negative. Now this topic of exophthalmos will be covered in the pathological series, but for the case over here, I will give you the disease. The disease is Graves' disease, and in Graves' disease, a characteristic feature is your exophthalmos. So, which is a case of hypothyroidism, not hyperthyroidism. So, eliminating A means our right option would be B. Exophthalmos would be negative in a case of hyperthyroidism because it's a sign of hypothyroidism, which is low production of your hormones. Here I have given the information for the answers, so you can look through it. And thank you for your time.